At the beginning of the chapter, we see Johnny sitting in a psychiatrist's office. Dr. Halligan asks where he was these last few days. Johnny says that he doesn't know. He was just trying to sort things out on his own. Dr. Halligan asks how was that going. Johnny answers and says that it was not going well. Instead, it was turning worse. Dr. Halligan apologizes to Johnny and says that she will have to report this to the court, as Johnny had an agreement with the judge, and he should honor it. Then she asks him if he still had headaches. Johnny says that the headaches were always there, and he says that it feels like something is either trying to make its way out of him or is trying to make its way in. Then Dr. Halligan asks about his nights, and Johnny says that they were very long. He says that when he drinks, then that night in his dream, all he sees is a long highway, and everything is dark. He is just riding on his bike, and he kept on riding until the dawn breaks. Then he says if he doesn't drink, he has nightmares. They are so intense that he wakes up to his scream. His body will sweat, and while he is sleeping, he will be trying to hit shadows. Then he says that it was not safe for people to be around him. So he drinks a lot. He says that if we put fuel in the bike, it will take them further. But it was exactly the opposite when a person drinks. Every single sip empties a person, and when you have drank so much that your eyelids drop on their own, then you go nowhere and see nothing. John says that he was happiest in that place, nowhere. He says that he knows that he shouldn't be like this. He has everything that a normal man would want. He is married to his childhood love, Roxanne, and they have 2 beautiful kids, Craig and Emma. They live in Heidenfall, which is a very safe and peaceful town. They have a beautiful home and enough money in their bank to live a carefree life. He further says that now and then he feels that something was hollowing him from the insides, and those hollow places keep on getting filled with anger, dissatisfaction, and sadness. While he was saying the last, he remembers that their neighbor's dog always barked at him. Then he says that it was enough for one day and tells Dr. Halligan that their time was over. Dr. Halligan says that before he leaves, she wants him to say it. Johnny looks at her and says if he needs to. Dr. Halligan says that he does. Johnny then says that his name was Johnny Blaze, and there was no such thing as a monster. As Johnny was getting ready to leave, he remembers that memory, that how he got into an accident a few months ago. In that accident, his skull got fractured. Because of this, he has to go through multiple surgery. Because of this, his memories were missing, and sometimes he would just attack people around him. But he has a loving family and he lives in a good community, which tells him that he will get better. Then Dr. Halligan gives him a prescription and tells him that these medicines will help him to sleep. Then she asks him if he was still suffering through walking hallucinations. Johnny lies and says that he was not. But in reality, he was seeing monsters and demons everywhere. Johnny goes out and on the road, he runs into Sheriff Ripper, who asks Johnny where he was heading to. Johnny says to him that he was just walking around, on which Sheriff says that he walks around a lot these days. He further says that the people of the town are saying that Johnny is afraid to get behind the wheel again, and tells him to get in. He will even let him sit in the front. Johnny says that he has already apologized to him for attacking him. Sheriff says that he was not there because of that. He says to Johnny that today he went to visit Johnny's neighbor, Mrs. Gunderson. He says to Johnny that Mrs. Gunderson has a little dog named Pim Pim who never shuts up. But today he went missing, and after a while, Mrs. Gunderson opened her mailbox. She found him stuffed into it. The dog's neck was snapped and it was full of blood. He asks Johnny if he knew something about it. Johnny tells him that he knows nothing and goes into a pharmacist's shop to buy medicine. Then in the night, while drinking, he goes into a graveyard and thinks that he doesn't remember the accident, but his body still remembers it. Meanwhile, in FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., Agent Wilmer was asking Director Crux to transfer to some other department. Director asks him what was the problem. Agent says that he was a man of science, but he was working in paranormal unit. He says that he wants the number to match up, and he believed in physics. The paranormal unit in itself was a problem for him. Director Crux says that he can't do anything because when the SHIELD got dissolved, the government hired some of the SHIELD's agents and appointed them in different departments. He couldn't say anything when the government appointed Agent Talia to them. Agent Wilmer says that she was the other problem. Meanwhile, Agent Talia also comes there, and the director's secretary asks her if she had an appointment, but Agent Talia pulls out a spider from her pocket and throws it on the secretary and goes inside the office. As soon as she enters the room, she tells the director that she needs $500,000 in equipment and travel expenses. Agent says to Director Crux that this was what he's been talking about. Every day he has to deal with this. Director then says to Agent Talia that he doesn't know how she used to work with SHIELD, but the FBI has its own rules. She needs to put an application in front of the committees, or at least she should say please. Agent Talia says that paranormal activity in South America was getting out of hand and she needs a fully functional unit to take care of it. So they should do what she asks and let her do her job. Director Cruz asks her what was her job exactly. Agent Talia says that's obvious. She hunts monsters. On the other hand, Johnny was teaching his son to how to ride a bicycle. His son says that he was scared, but Johnny says that riding was in their blood. His grandpa and Johnny himself loved to ride. As Craig starts to ride the bicycle, Johnny lets go and says that he was doing great. But soon Craig falls and he starts crying. Johnny picks him up and asks Roxanne to clean him up as Johnny needed to go to the shop. Roxanne tells Johnny to go. In the shop, Johnny asks Roxanne's dad that did he ever thought of living a different life. He says that even a small thing can change the future drastically. Roxanne's father asks Johnny if he was talking about the crash. Johnny says that he was talking about everything. He feels like he has taken a wrong turn. Roxanne's father then says to him that Johnny is a good husband to his daughter, a good father to his grandchildren, and a good business partner of his. He says to Johnny that can't he see that he was living the American nightmare. Johnny hears this and says what? Roxanne's father then says that Johnny was living the American dream. Meanwhile, a man named Zeb comes to the town and sees some kids playing baseball. One of the kids lies to the other kid and says that he was out. Zeb goes to the kid and says to him that the kid was lying and liars deserve to be punished. Then he says to the kid that he should let the other kid that how well he can swing the bat. After hearing this, the kid runs to the kid and starts beating him up with the baseball bat. Meanwhile, in Dr. Halligan's office, Johnny was going through another therapy session, and Dr. Halligan asks him how was his relationship with Roxanne going. Johnny says that Roxanne is worried about it, and says that Roxanne says to him that she is terrified of what will happen if Johnny started riding again. While talking to her, Johnny notices the painting that was there, and as he turns toward Dr. Halligan, he sees that she was a monster. Johnny once tries to attack her and says that he kill her, but soon he gets back to his normal state and apologizes to Dr. Halligan. He says that he will leave now. Johnny runs back to his home, and on the way, he only sees chaos and destruction. When he gets back home, he looks at Roxanne and his kids, but this time he only sees monsters instead of his family. This makes Johnny puke, and then he starts to drink. Roxanne comes to him and asks him what was the issue. She says to him that he was scaring the kids and her too. Roxanne then asks him if he has taken his pills, but Johnny says that he hasn't. Roxanne says to him that she will bring them, but Johnny holds her hand tightly and says to him what if he is not crazy? What if everyone else was crazy? Roxanne tells him that he was hurting her, and in anger, she slaps Johnny. The ring on her hand cuts Johnny's face, and then Johnny says to her that he doesn't remember giving that ring to her. Roxanne in anger says that he doesn't even remember what he ate in the morning. Johnny tells her to show that ring to her, but Roxanne backs away, and in her defense, she holds a knife toward Johnny. Soon they hear a doorbell and Roxanne goes to answer it. He sees Zeb, who introduces himself and gives Roxanne his card. Then he holds her hand and says that the ring she was wearing was really interesting and asks her what was it made up of. Roxanne calls Johnny, and Johnny, to protect her, attacks Zeb with a knife while shouting at him and telling him to stay away from his wife. Zeb says that she was not his wife, and these people were not his. He was trapped here because of a spell by someone. Although he doesn't know who did it, he was here to help him. Soon the sheriff comes there and hits Zeb with his car. Then he tells Johnny and the others to go back inside. Zeb says to him that while he was trapped here, the world has been going through hell, and he reaches out to Johnny and tells him that he can show Johnny everything. Everyone tries to stop Johnny, but Johnny reaches out and holds Zeb's hand. Then he sees people suffering and calling out to him. They were asking for his help, or rather the help of the spirit of vengeance that was inside him. Zeb then gets on fire, and from that fire, a crow emerges and flies away. Roxanne comes to Johnny and says to him that he should come back to them. Johnny at once cuts her fingers and picks up the ring, and he throws it into the fire. Everyone tries to stop him and tells him that it was not a gift, it was a curse. But soon the fire engulfs Johnny, and the Ghost Rider emerges. As he comes out, all the people who were in that town get into their true forms. They were all demons and monsters, even Johnny's family. Ghost Rider then kills everyone there, and he leaves the town to find the person who trapped him there. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned to get more new videos. Stay safe and keep watching.